Good morning, welcome to the Stamping with Val Facebook page. I seem really far back today. Normally I'm too close, then I'm too, never seem to get it right, do I? I turn the camera around, the stand around all the time, so it never goes back to the same place. A few deep breaths this morning. I'm going to bring it up on the iPad. And then I shall tell you about my week. You might not want to hear about my week. Oh man, my week has been mad. Oh, there we are. Oh, turn the volume right down. What was I watching? Right. Morning, if you're there. Hello. It looks like Taylor might be there, maybe. If you are, hello. Hello. I'll wait for some other people to hop on. My fringe is annoying me particularly this morning, so I've managed to find one of the kids' hair clips, and I'm just tucking it out of the way because it's driving me bonkers today. I've obviously not quite got the parting right or something, or I keep forgetting how much quicker it's drying because it's so much shorter. So I tend to do that whole thing where I bundle my hair up into a towel plonked on top of my head, and I leave it there while I do everything else. You know, get myself dry from the shower, you know, deodorant, all those sorts of things. And of course, it dries so much faster now. So even if I just leave it done up like that in like 20 minutes, whereas before that would have been absolutely fine and then I could style it. Now, 20 minutes, it's almost dry. And then it's kind of like, oh no, that bit's not going where I want it to go. And so I keep forgetting that I need to take the towel off sooner, or maybe even just give it a quick towel dry and be done with it. I'm not sure I need it on my head. So, but yes, where are we? A few minutes past 10. I think I completely forgot to put up the reminder yesterday, and when you hear about my week you'll totally understand why I forgot. But normally on a Thursday afternoon I post something to the Facebook group going, oh, don't forget I'll be live tomorrow. And I didn't yesterday. In fact, I did it about half an hour ago, and I barely remembered then. So, since I can't decide if it's been a long week since last Friday or an incredibly short one. Okay, can't work that out at all. Not sure. It's been a bit nuts, honestly. It has been a bit nuts. So after I saw you last Friday, obviously, Saturday morning we had a phone call quite early to say that unfortunately Paul's granddad had passed away during the night. Paul still had two grandfathers, both in the 90s. So he'd had a long life and a pretty happy life, and he'd been a bit unwell in the last sort of 6 months. He'd been in and out of hospital a few times, so it wasn't a major shock, but we hadn't been expecting it that weekend. But he was 95, so it wasn't unreasonable age. But that's kind of just kicked off a series of extra things, and this was already a busy week. So we ended up having Paul's parents stay with us on Tuesday night on their way. They live about 6 hours drive from where they grew up and where their parents live, or still live. So, and we're about 2/3 of the way along that journey. So they stopped with us overnight and then carried on the rest of the journey Wednesday morning. But I wasn't expecting them. And that evening we were visiting a local secondary school because my children are at that age where we are now the prospective parents for secondary school. So we were taking the girls to visit one of the local secondary schools that evening. So his parents had to sit on the drive and wait for us to come back because we weren't actually in when they arrived. In the meantime, my car went to the garage, and it was going to be in the garage for 2 days, and I was going to kind of share... Oh, hi, Jodie. I was going to kind of share Paul's car with him. Unfortunately, the mechanic was then told he wasn't allowed to drive. He'd been to hospital, he wasn't allowed to drive, and it would take him longer to deal with the car. So I still don't have my car back. So on top of all the other things, I've been having to take Paul to and from work so that I can keep his car in the daytime. His parents are then back with us tonight to spend the weekend with us before they head back down again next week to prepare for the funeral. So I've got, you know, hosty type duties to do this weekend in the house, and it means I'll have to clean as well, to be honest. I'll have to fit some housework in somewhere. And it's just been one of those weeks. It's just been one of those weeks where I'm just non-stop in and out, throwing people, feeding people, in and out some more. It's just been bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Next week won't be any better. Next week isn't going to be any better because we will have the funeral. We have another secondary school to visit. It's not normally this bad. It's not. This is a bit of a one, but they always seem to happen right before the end of term. The kids will break up for the summer holidays in like 4 weeks' time, and it always seems to happen around this time that I'm like, I've got 4 weeks, and I try and get ahead for the summer holidays. So I'm usually going, I've got 4 weeks, and I want to fit 8 weeks work into it, and then something will come along, go, not going to make that easy for you, basically. So yeah, it always seems to be around this time of year that everything kicks off. So yeah, next week we have another secondary school to visit, and we'll have the funeral as well, and I will have my car back by then. I don't know how people manage on one car. If you have one car but you both drive and you both kind of need it, let me know how you cope, because I don't know how people cope with only one car. And I know we're incredibly lucky, and I'm very grateful that we have 2 cars. We do have a car each, because yeah, Paul had taken the car Wednesday morning. I was like, I'll walk the kids to school, that's not a problem. I'll walk the children to school, you take the car, because he wanted to go about 7 o'clock in the morning as well. You take the car. One of the kids turns around about 7:30 and goes, my school bag was still in the boot of Daddy's car. I was like, really? Okay, well, I'm sure there's nothing you can't live without for one day. She went, well, it's the school assembly, it's our class assembly this morning. I'm like, well, yeah, I know, so you won't really need your bag. No, my costume's in it. I'd given her a bag, given them both a bag to put their costumes. Why wasn't your costume in the costume bag? I forgot. Right, okay. Because Paul's parents were here, Paul's dad then drove me to Paul's work to get said bags. In the end, I just brought his car back again, to be honest. Because in the meantime, it's a good job they were here. It's a good job they were here. Because it turns out Paul had also taken my house keys in his car to work with him as well. So I couldn't lock the house up either in order to leave it, because he'd taken my house keys with him. So it was just... And all this was then at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the kids have to be, at house school for Half-Past-8, and we have to go past numerous other schools. So Paul's dad's driving me over to Paul's work. He only works like 10 minutes drive away, but he's driving me over there. But he works on an industrial estate, lots of lorries and trucks. Some truck had gone up a road it wasn't supposed to, and had got to a canal bridge, a little humpback canal bridge that's not wide enough for the trucks to go over. They're not meant to go up there. So he then had to do a 53-point turn with his truck and trailer in this narrow road at the end of this humpback bridge. So we're sat there in traffic going, I've got 10 minutes to get Paul's car and drive back across town to take the girls to school. And I've got to lock the house up, and you guys need to leave to head south. And I needed that cup of tea after that. Just like, seriously, school bags, car, house keys, everything's Paul's car. Paul's taking it across town to work. He was just like, just take the car, just take the car. Okay. That's the kind of week that it's been. So, yes. So, believe it or not, having chatted for 10 minutes, I'm going to make today a fairly short and sweet one. I managed to get a bunch of work done yesterday afternoon somewhere that got me a little bit ahead for today. I just don't have time to craft. I haven't had much time to craft this week. I have to confess, I haven't had a great deal of time to craft. And all of that, I should point out, was we here in the UK had 5 days of over 30 degrees heat, which for some of you I know is water off a duck's back, I'm sure, but here in the UK, over 30 degrees is fairly unusual in itself. We do get a couple each year. We'll get a few, but in general, out of 365 days, it's 2 or 3 days across the summer. So it's unusual to have that. We had 5 days solid of 30 degrees plus, you know, 33 degrees. We even broke a record that we had the hottest June day since 1976. So, and both mine and Paul's parents remember that. Mine and Paul's mums remember that very well, because that's the summer they were pregnant with us. So they remember the summer of 76 very well, where they had prolonged heat over weeks and weeks and weeks, and droughts and all the rest of it. But yeah, 5 days in a row. So by the time we all got to sort of Monday and Tuesday anyway, we were all a bit, it's too hot to do anything at all. It's too hot. So I haven't done much crafting. I've snuck in a few bits when I've managed to find a cool moment, but I haven't done masses. So I've ended up behind on that. So the plan is to do what I need to do today, as quickly as I can this morning, and then kind of regroup. I think I'm going to take the afternoon off. I might just see if I can find a film, a bit of a chick flick or something that no one else would want to watch with me. Veg out, make a new plan ready for next week, and then come back fresh on Monday, hopefully recharged, even though next week's going to be manic, but you know, kind of. So that's my plan, is to get done. So let's move on to, I almost debated cancelling the Facebook Live, but we won't do that. So let's move on. I've pre-prepped some of the bits for today's card so that we can get on. So let me spin you guys round, and we'll make today's card. We'll have another tiny little chat at the end, and then this week will soon be over. Okay, you ready? I'm going to flip you round. Lion's a great movie. Oh no, Lion? I've never heard of that. I'll have to tell me what it's about. Oh, I should have to look it up. Right, you ready? I'm going to spin you. Okay. Okey-doke. Right. Twiddle that one. Flick you round. That looks fairly straight. Move you down so you can see the desk. There's all this stuff off to the side here. I think that stamp was left over from last week's card, actually. Right. Here we go. So as you can see, I've already prepped a few bits for the jar, but I don't need those for a minute. So this is the card that I shared this week. I like it. I don't think I'm going to win any prizes with it. In that sense, it's not the world's most exciting card. I haven't put a sentiment on it. I've left it as an all occasion card. I think you could use it for birthdays. I think you could use it for get well, sympathy, thinking of you, all those sorts of things. So I decided to leave it sentiment free, and then add a sentiment either to the front or just inside when I'm ready to use the card, depending on what occasion I decide to use it for. But the Jar of Love's a great stamp set because you can use it for lots of things. I've been meaning to pair it with this wood textures paper for a few weeks, ever since we got the paper, because I think the combination of the rustic then with the soft delicate flowers is really lovely. I can easily see you using this scheme for like weddings as well. That would be nice. There's a lot of rustic country weddings. Jodie's telling me about the film. Taking his grown up to an adult, and then he's looking for his family. Oh, I know the one. Oh, I've seen trailers for that. That's not the one where he was on a train, is it? Something to do with the train. Is it that one, or is that a different one? Maybe. Yeah, here in the UK, sort of rustic country weddings have become really quite fashionable. And the crate dies and stamps would be great for weddings, those sort of country weddings. You know, we have lots of like barns and barn conversions and things like that. And now farming in the UK isn't a terribly profitable business. Lots of farms are trying to find ways of diversifying their businesses. And a lot of them are moving into, you know, weddings and things like that because they have the buildings that they can convert, things like that. Oh, it is that one. Oh, okay. I'll have a look for that. I'll see if it's on Netflix or something. As long as it's not going to make me cry too much. I mean, a chick flick, yeah, but not too much crying. And I sob at everything. I'm a wuss. yeah, so I think this would be really, really lovely. And it's something I will have ideas for, and then I haven't got round to doing them just yet. But I will eventually. There's never enough hours in the day, is there? So what I wanted to share with you predominantly was, obviously, I did this angled edge to my matte layers. I've got the angles going on here. And they were actually really, really easy to create. It can get a bit kind of like, oh, it'll end up squiffy, you know, whatever. But actually, they were really super easy to do on my paper trimmer. They weren't hard, so they're nothing to be nervous of. And I bordered it with a bit of powder pink. After last week, I claimed I didn't have any powder pink card, and then I found some. I knew I had some somewhere. So it's not hard to do, but you do need your paper trimmer. So here's my paper trimmer. I've already gone ahead. Like I say, I've prepped ahead today. So I've got a Whisper White card base that I've scored through the middle. So it's long ways A4 and scored so that I've got the portrait card base. I've got a piece of the Wood Textures Designer Series paper. And for now, I've just cut it to the same width as the card base. And this is still the full length of the bit of paper. I'll trim that off in a bit. Okay, but for now, we're just going to work on getting the angle in that right. And I tried a couple of different measurements. I had one where I'd come quite far down here and it was a bit too pointy. It kind of looked like an arrow. It was a little bit too pointy. So I decided to keep the cuts shallower so it wasn't quite so fierce. So what I've done, which I found easy, was just to mark it off for now. You can use a ruler and pencil if you prefer. If you're using a pencil, you might want to mark on the back. That's up to you. So you need to find the halfway point from here to here. If you're one of my American or Canadian friends, obviously your card width is very slightly different to mine. So cut this to your card width and then find the center for you. Okay, the center of this for me in metric is 5.5 centimeters. I'm just going to make a tiny little mark. I'm just going to use my scoring tool just so that I can put a tiny little notch in there. You won't see it when we cut it off in a minute anyway, but just so that I know where the middle is. I'm going to turn it this way and I'm going to put this end at about 1 inch. And I've warned you all, I mix and match my imperial and metric all the time. That's about 2.5 centimeters. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to put a tiny notch on that side and then lifting that up and bringing it to the side. I'm just going to put a tiny notch on that side as well. So I've put in 3 tiny scores, one at the top and then 1 inch down from the left and right hand sides. I don't know if you can see them. I can barely see them. But that's good because we don't want them to show on the final card. Like I say, if you prefer a pencil, that's absolutely fine. Now I'm going to position the notches into that cutting groove. So there's the top center notch. Here's this right hand one. I find it best to lift this up out of the way. And I'm basically just lining them up into the center of that groove. And then when I'm happy, I'm just going to pop that down and using the cutting blade, I'm going to cut that off. If you wanted, you could flip that over and use that as a template to cut that side, which would give you a really, really accurate, so that they were the same on both sides. But I'm going to carry on. I'm at the center point now, and now the notch on the left-hand side. I'm going to pop that in and I'm going to cut again like that. And that's it. It really is super easy. I know there's some dies out there that will do it for you, but you don't need dies. You can do it with your paper trimmer. So some of them cut like a stitched border into it. That's rather nice though, I have to admit. So I've just, the blade on my trimmer is a bit blunt, and so I just had some slightly woolly edges, so I'm just sort of trimming the fuzz off basically. Right then, to do the border behind, I'll just pop that out of the way for a minute, but we're going to need it. Okay, I'm going to cut myself a piece of powder pink card that's going to give me something to stick behind here and then above there. So probably about 2 inches deep is probably enough. And again, the same width as the card base. It's about 5 centimeters and the same width as the base. And the first thing to do is I'm actually going to stick this behind here because we're going to do it in place. So just a little bit of glue. Come on. Down this bottom edge. Okay. And then you just want to position it so you've got enough space at the top to be able to cut yourself a little border. Okay, or leave as much space depending on how big a border you want. I'm cutting quite a narrow border. Okay. There we are. Then I'm going to bring my paper trimmer back in. And now we're just going to find some point on your paper trimmer that you can use as an identifying mark. So these, for example, these grooves have various sort of points within them, sort of edges, I suppose. And I'm generally using those, but you could also use like that line there where that cutting bit pushes into there. You could use this grey edge here. You could use one of the lines on there, whatever, depending on how big you want it to be, basically. So what I'm doing is I'm going to find some sort of point within my trimmer that I'm then going to line up the straight edge of my wood paper to. Okay, so I'm going for one of the grooves, one of the sort of where the plastic's moulded there. And then when I'm happy, that's going to leave me quite a thick border. I'm going to bring it back in a little bit. I'm going to use a different one. I'm going to go for that one. So it's lined up. It's actually lined up with the inside edge of the gap through the middle where the blade goes, the left hand edge of that. So it's just going to give me a narrow border, but by lining the paper up with that, I get a straight line, so I get a straight cut. I'm just going to turn it and do it again. So you just need to remember which mark you used, basically, as your guide, so that you put it against the same mark again next time. Then when you're happy, up you go again, and there you go. I've not got it terribly even, I have to admit. It does work, I swear, because I did it on that one. I've obviously perhaps rushed it on here. That one's not quite as even as that one. So you could trim that one down a little bit if you like to make it up. You obviously can't make that one bigger. So if you prefer, you could just use scissors. You could use a ruler and a cutting blade. It's entirely up to you. Okay, but the idea is they're really not very hard to do. There we go. To get that angle and to get it straight. Then when you're happy with all of that, I've just gone ahead and I've popped it onto my base card, leaving a gap. I couldn't decide for ages whether to do it that way or whether to do it that way. It's entirely up to you. Personal choice. You could put the card that way and have it going like that. It's up to you. Maybe should we do it that way? Will the jar fit on if we do it that way? Yeah, it will. Why don't we do it that way then for a change? In which case I would normally have prepped a card base with a score at the top. Okay. I've put mine on with dimensionals because I like lots of height. Okay, so I'm probably going to put it about there. We'll trim this end of the paper off in a minute. There we go. It's quite quiet on here today. I don't think there's many of you today. Okie doke. I think my dimensionals here have ended up too far over. What's happening with me today? Okay, when you're happy with that, I'm going to flip it over. You could have trimmed it up beforehand, and you don't have to do it now, but I'm just going to run my scissors up that edge, like so. Okay, and you can stash that bit for another project. There we go. And then for the most part, I've prepped all of this already. So I went ahead and I cut some flowers. Okay, I used Powder Pink and Flirty Flamingo for these. So for the large flower, for the big part, I actually used powder pink stamped off. Then for this sort of tulipy part in there, I used powder pink solid. And then the little stamen type bits are the Flirty Flamingo. And then for these ones, I just used powder pink as it was with Flirty Flamingo on top. So, but stamping off the powder pink is how I got like the extra colour in these bigger ones. And then I've cut 2 leaves from Lemon Lime Twist. And I've got the small jar and I've stamped it in Pool Party and I've die cut it. I'm just going to add a sort of a bit of fake water to it, basically. Now there is a stamp in the stamp set for that, if you wanted. So here's the Jar of Love stamp set. So I've used this big one there, and then you stamp it with that one, and then that tiny little bit there. And then these ones, you stamp with those ones. And then I've used the small jar. And if you want, you can use this water. But in the small jar, this comes up quite full. And I was also kind of like, we'll watercolour it. Go on, what the hell. This is only ordinary card stock. So I don't want my aqua brush very full. I only keep a tiny dribble of water in mine so that I can't drench everything. And I very rarely press the button to release any more down. So I'm just going to trying to keep my water level straight. As we've all discussed previously, watercolouring is not my strong point at all. So, but I'm trying not to do it too much, otherwise I'll get the card wet. Like I say, if you prefer, you can just stamp that into there. And then these were just layered up, basically. So I stuck the leaves behind. I just put a tiny oh, come on. A few bits of glue high up on the stem for those. Okay, and I've positioned those behind the jar. That one. And then that one. And where I've got a little bit sticking off the bottom, I'm just going to trim it off like that. It's gone. Got glue on the desk as well. Okay. Started out, I like to position the big flowers first, personally, and then I sort of fill in the gaps with smaller ones as I go. So I'm going to use a couple of dimensionals for those. I'm going to put one lowish down on that side, and one slightly higher on that side. These ones are great because the new tiny dimensionals, and I hadn't realised how dinky they were, but they are dinky and they're really cute, are really sweet. So I'm going to put one, I'm going to stick one with just glue, I think, one of the larger ones. Okay, I've put some glue on the back, and then I'm going to tuck that up underneath there. And the same with one of the small ones. And again, it's not hard just to tuck it under there because they've used dimensionals. You can just sort of get underneath there and tuck those on there. And then I'm going to take the other smaller one and one of these little dimensionals, which is so cute. Love them. Okay. And I'm going to put that one on the top of those ones like that. Okay. A couple more again on the back of the jar. Okay, we decided we'd put this card this way, didn't we? Okay. And then that on like that. Okay, so that card would now fit that way. I quite like it that way. And there you have it. And I had a flower left over as well for another project. So there you go. That's how you get those angled edges. I know mine didn't 100% come out perfectly when I did it, but they're not hard to do. I certainly don't think you'd end up sat there, trim that side, trim that side, trim that side, trim that side, until you get them even. If you just find some sort of guide point on your trimmer and keep it the same for both, you should end up even. Like I said, I did it for this one first go. I didn't trim this one up, neaten this one up at all. So there we have it. There's my project for today. I know I've kept it really quick, just because of everything that's been going on this week, as I said. So things to bear in mind for this week. It's a bit of a quiet week. I don't have any blog hops coming up particularly this week, but I do have a video planned for a really cute little project, and I was hoping to show it to you, and now I can't find it and put my hands on it. Where have I put it? Oh, what have I done with that? I had it. Right, okay, well, I'll find it, obviously. A really cute little house home decor project that I'm going to be sharing a video with you next week. I'm hoping to record that after I finished here today. So that's coming on the blog next week. This is the last week to, or this week coming, this last week is the last week to join us in July for the Crafty Carrot. So for that, we're looking at the Pieces and Patterns stamp set. We're also going to be using embossing paste and what have you in that group. So that's going to be a really fab one to join us for. So you just need to purchase with your Crafty Carrot demonstrator this week to get in on that. My Sent With Love craft kit, that's closed, the June one. I'll be opening the July one next Saturday, so I'll have some more information on that for you on Friday. What else? It's quite, like I say, it's quite a quiet one. Oh, and Laughs and Paper Crafts is 2 weeks today. That's my live class here in Rugby. So if you live in the UK and you live in sort of the Rugby area or within a reasonable travelling distance, next week is my Laughs and Paper Crafts. No, not next week, the week after, 2 weeks today. So I've got that coming up. So that will be coming out in the newsletter to RSVP to as well. Yeah. So I think that covers everything this week. I think that covers everything. It's quite a quiet one. I think I'm going to be grateful for that. But yeah, a bit manic, but we'll get there. Another manic one, but we'll get there. So I will join you back here next Friday for another creating chat. Hopefully things will be a bit calmer and a bit more settled. Oh, and I'll get my hair coloured next Friday as well. We're fitting that in too. That'll be fun. Okay. All right then, guys. Thanks for joining me today, and I will be back with you next week, and obviously hopping into the Facebook group over the next week with various bits and bobs to share. So I hope you'll join me then. Bye for now.